Thanks for joining us today on The Best Years. I'm your host, Sandy Levine. From keeping out of hot water with your tax returns to plunging deep underwater with some noted scuba divers, we have a lot to share with you today. Tax time's coming, and for many seniors that means filing for a property tax reimbursement, which helps with rising property taxes. Jane Maloney, Director of the Ocean County Office of Senior Services, explains some important changes to the program.
The Property Tax Reimbursement Program is a program that really offers relief to senior citizens and people who are disabled under Social Security for the difference between the year that they become eligible for the program and any subsequent increases in their taxes. Individuals apply for the program and they establish what they call a base year. And from that year on, if they continue to be eligible for the program, their taxes are really frozen, so that each year that they apply for the program, they receive back a reimbursement for any increase from their base year to the current year that they've paid their property taxes.
Well, I think it's just great, because it is free for everyone, and a lot of people will like your advice coming from a reliable source.
Well, individuals who are 65 years or over and individuals who are permanently disabled under Social Security are eligible for the program. And then there's some other factors to meet the eligibility requirements. You need to have been a resident of the state of New Jersey for 10 years. You need to have lived in your home and paid taxes for 3 years. And you also need to meet some income criteria.
Well, there are a lot of things we don't know, like free passes to certain places, state parks, and most definitely the freeze for their property taxes. And a lot of other things I have to learn myself, and I'm sure I'll get them today.
With the April 15th deadline right around the corner, we're all looking for some tips to make tax time easier and less costly. Joining me are CPA Charles Totaro and AARP volunteer tax counselor John Gimber. Thanks for joining me on The Best Years today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles, what are some of the most common mistakes seniors make as they get ready to file their returns?
Some of the mistakes that seniors make is that they're not prepared to file their returns. The most important thing, I think, is gathering your records and putting them in the format of the tax return, trying to separate income from expenses, and then going through your checkbook and looking for all tax-deductible medical expenses, your real estate property taxes, your contributions, and any other miscellaneous deductions, such as your prior year accounting fees and so on. And if you could put them in a logical order like that, it would help a lot. If you could find the paid bills for medical expenses and possibly canceled checks, and looking through the checkbook and making sure you find all your deductions.
So being prepared, obviously.
Being prepared is very important. One of the biggest mistakes I find is if you're making estimated taxes, make sure you bring in copies of those checks so we can get the dates that you made those estimated taxes and the amounts you paid.
What about the medical deduction? For older adults, of course, that could be a very important part of your return. How does that work?
The medical deductions work. Your unreimbursed medical expenses in excess of 7.5% of your adjusted gross income are deductible if you're itemizing your tax return. On the state of New Jersey, the state of New Jersey has an exclusion of 2%. So even though you might not be itemizing on your federal return, you might get a deduction on the state tax return. So you should look at your medical expenses. It's an area that a lot of people fail to consider, and it can be a good deduction. Now, if President Obama wanted to help stimulate, he could have excluded or eliminated the 7.5%. That would have given a lot of people immediately a break in taxes, but for some reason they didn't.
And John Gimber, you're there to help when people need help as well, and you're involved with a free program. Tell me how that works.
Yes, Sandy. The program is a national program called the ARP or AARP Tax Aid Program. It's a national program where volunteers go to sites like church halls, libraries, community centers, and do taxes for people for free. The main interest that we have is in the older community, people of 60 years old or over with moderate or low income. But we don't turn anyone away who comes in, and as you said, the service is free.
How does it work? You just show up at a center? Do you need to make an appointment?
Appointments are necessary at some places, but for the most part, you just walk in. It's a first come, first serve. I have a toll-free number if anyone would be interested, if I could mention it.
Sure.
It's 1-888-AARP-NOW. That's 1-888-AARP-NOW, and they'll direct you to a place near you.
There are many sites in Ocean County. Name just a few of them, if you would.
Well, we have a site in Barnegat. We have a site in Berkeley. We have sites in Little Egg Harbor, of course, a couple in Toms River, and that toll-free number would direct you to the one nearest you.
Sounds like a great program. And Charles, finally, once again, as people prepare, what would you say is the #1 mistake they make?
The #1 mistake is not going through their records and looking for deductions, but maybe in a way they're not really fully aware of the deductions. So try to have the records available so that your tax preparer can do a good job for you, I would say. But as far as mistakes, I find that a lot of the forms are confusing because some of the forms are 1099, some are 1098s, and people get confused with the forms. So, and some people throw them away by mistake, and that's a big danger. Don't throw tax forms away.
And John, we've heard about instant tax refunds. Is that a good idea generally?
Well, it depends on the individual. Our volunteers don't provide them. We do electronically file, and we can have your refund directly deposited into your account. But the way the instant refunds work is it's a short-term loan, and so there are fees and interest involved. So if you're desperate to have the money, it could be a good idea. But if you can wait, it's not such a good idea.
Because potentially you could lose quite a bit of your refund?
Yes.
And what would you say is the biggest mistake people make, or what would you most want people to do when they come in for tax aid?
I think I would just agree with Charles that they should bring everything they need. The forms that they receive usually come in an envelope marked important tax document enclosed.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes our taxpayers will forget that. All it takes is means is that they have to come back again.
Right. Says that for a reason, important tax document. Well, Charles Totoro, John Gimber, thank you so much for being on The Best Years today. Enjoyed having you both here.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. Great advice. Now stay tuned. We'll be right back with more on The Best Years.